Um, and we are recording.
Okay. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the February 25th, 2026 meeting of the Joint Capital Planning Committee. We are meeting virtually as enabled by state legislation, and I want to go around and make sure everybody can hear and be heard. I'll just go in order that I can see. Sean,
Yep, I can hear you.
Lee,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Eugene,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and Deb.
Hi.
Hi. And are we, Deb, are we, is Bridget not going to be able to make it today? Is that what I heard? Or do you know?
I did not hear.
Okay. So we'll hope Bridget shows up, but if not, then we'll carry on. So the agenda today, I'm chairing because as vice chair because Kathy's on a train somewhere in Connecticut, and the connection might be a little bit um, questionable at times. So, but she's here to participate, and basically the agenda is project discussions, continuing with our project discussion. So we have the assessors for planned time of 10 minutes, the police for a planned time of 30 minutes, and public works for a planned time of 75 minutes. Then we'll have public comment, if any, and matters not anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting. So, Sean, do you want to give us any introduction to the presentations today?
Yeah, so Kim, our assessor, is in the audience. I'm going to bring her in, and she will speak to the request from her office. And then Captain Ting is also here in the audience. We'll bring him in. He'll follow up after Kim, and then we'll shift to DPW, which has a lot of requests, a lot of projects. So we promote both of them. And then I just wanted to quickly remind the committee. So as we go through these presentations, if you have any questions that either aren't answered during the meeting, or if you look back and you have questions afterwards, please send them directly to me. I will work with the department heads to get those questions answered. So we had fire department came. I don't think there are any outstanding questions that weren't answered at the meeting from them. And then sustainability presented after that. And the same thing, I don't believe there are any unanswered questions, but if there are, or if you have them later, just email them to me and I'll get those responses for you. I usually will prepare like a big long running Word document with all the questions and responses from department heads. So, and if you look ahead and you see any questions that you have coming up on projects that are in the packet, then you can also send them in advance too if you'd like to try to get them answered when the department heads come. So that's just a quick reminder. And with that, I will turn it over to Kim, our assessor. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Kim. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I've actually attended a couple of the Board of Assessors meetings and have been pleased to see the work that you guys do and appreciated the newsletter you sent out recently. I thought it was very helpful.
Thank you.
So welcome, and we look
Thank
forward to
you.
hearing from you.
Thank
So
you.
Kim has two requests that we are sort of lumped together because they're both for consultants. One's a little bit smaller, but it'd be similar consultants that we would hire. So do you just want to kind of start, Kim, with what the two pieces are, then describe each one?
Sure. So we have two, like Sean said, small pieces. The first one is a $3,000 request for personal property. This is specifically for picking up new businesses in UMass. So this is like storefronts, could be restaurants, could be something like Amazon boxes, basically anything that should be receiving a personal property tax bill that we may not have. So this would basically just entail our consultant to go and do a walk around on campus and look for those items that we might have. This is not for the restaurants that are run by UMass or like the dining common. I think probably we wouldn't find anything there necessarily because it's all UMass employees, but this is for other businesses that UMass has a contract with. Like I said, maybe Amazon or something to that nature. And then the other request is for our consultant who helps me finalize the values at the end of the year for real estate and some personal property as well. Um, in the past, this has been something that we have put in as a capital request. Um, and it's about 5,000 a year, so this covers a couple of years for us. And this is basically the consultant comes in and helps me complete all the forms that the DOR requires, helps me with all the calculations and the data analysis that we do every single year, just to, like I said, finalize our values and get all of that required DOR information into the system.
And I'll just quickly add with the UMass one. So this is something we've been wanting to do for a while. We started doing it. The assessor's office just doesn't have the capacity. There used to be 2.5 people. One of those positions was eliminated a year ago. They're down to just 2 people, and they don't have the capacity to go on to UMass campus with given the size and all the buildings and kind of just like search. And so this is really to hire somebody to come in and kind of do that for us and maybe even work with UMass to find out if there's a easier way to facilitate getting that information. Because personal property, when it's used on campus, there's certain types of personal property that might be taxable. And so it's possible there might be things that have been missed that could contribute to new growth and then come onto the tax rolls. They might find nothing. And if they find nothing, then at least we have the peace of mind that like we've done our due diligence and really looked at the campus closely. But our hope is that they may find something, and if they do, that it'll essentially pay for itself. This investment, which is meant to be sort of a one-time expense.
Yes. And also, it's really like the DOR requires us to be fair and equitable to all properties. And so that would be really just fitting right into what they're asking us to do if we're intentionally skipping over someone. I think they would be not too pleased with that. So that just falls in line with what they ask us to do every year with all properties as well.
So I see Kathy has her hand up.
I do. So I'm curious on why this is capital, especially the $3,000, because I think our capital threshold, Sean, is 10 on just
Yeah.
on the amount. But then also I wasn't sure if one or the other of them is ongoing. Like, do you regularly need this? In which case,
Right.
there would be sort of a consultant budget for the
Yeah.
assessor's office in the operating
So,
costs.
yeah, so it's a good question. So in this, something Joint Capital Planning Committee worked on, if you look at the plan and the definition of capital, one of the things that was added was basically consulting contracts that are multi-year in their nature and they're sort of spent unevenly. And the reason why it's not a lot of that in the capital plan, but I would say in the assessor's office, there's a history of this where there's consultants that come in and some years they help the assessor's office inspect a bunch of properties. The next year there may not be a bunch of properties to inspect. And so we do a multi-year contract and it allows us to sort of work with that consultant and tackle inspecting all the houses, doing the end of year reports as Kim mentioned. And so that one has been in capital for a while. The 3,000, this was a new thing that was put on Kim's radar, and it potentially could be. It's typically some of the consultants we work with that do it, so we were thinking it would be added on to one of these contracts that we typically have. There's not money in the operating budget currently to do this, so that's why we sort of combine these into one request for consulting support to help the assessor's office. One to do sort of this typical thing that we've done in the past, and this smaller piece, which would be a new thing, but that we believe would help potentially increase revenues long term for the town.
Yes, so I think it's a good idea to find out about the property that we can tax. But it's just my question, because if I flip over to the school world, there are some consultants they might be using, and then where is the gray area when a consulting contract can be a capital expense as opposed to part of a operating budget. So I think what you just said is this is not a same thing every year. It goes up and down, which would be difficult to budget for that.
Yeah, no, and again, I would point to again in the back of the capital plan. There's a section that describes capital And we had a long conversation about this, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, around, sometimes this comes up in planning, for example, like planning, they hire consultants to do different studies from time to time, and they're not the same every year. We win a budget in the operating budget because you do the study once and then that study lasts you for 5 to 10 years. You might have to do it again. So consultants hired to come do that study, and then and so we've used capital for that as well. So I would say look at the definition that's in the back, and if there's submissions that fit within that definition, this committee would consider them.
Deb?
And Sean, could you repeat the bundling part? Would the $3,000 be bundled in with the 20,000, or is it
Yeah, so
bundling in with?
we would probably, if this was approved, when we go to do the solicitation procurement. Sorry, I have a crying child. And we would it's potential that the same consultant might help us with this. We're not quite positive yet if there's 2 or 3 consultants that do this work, and so we would have to think about how we bundle them together. It's possible the same consultant could do both. If not, it might be 2 separate contracts.
So if you bundled it, you would bundle it with another contract that's been previously approved, or I still
No,
not.
the new $20,000 that's being requested, that contract doesn't exist yet. So the second project
Oh, I
can.
see.
Jill.
So sorry, just another rookie question. That like so technically if it's not bundled, we can't approve it because it doesn't meet the threshold, the $10,000 threshold. So how does that work, Kathy, like logistically?
That was my question, Jill, on,
Yeah.
maybe we make, so Sean, I had if it has to be a standalone 3,000, then it doesn't meet our definition of capital. So is there a way where, I mean, I think these things need to be done. So it's not a question of are these important
Yeah, again,
contract?
so we're requesting it. It's up to the committee to make their recommendation. I view these as sort of a bundle. Kim submitted them as 2 separate requests, but because of the nature of what the type of consultant that we would hire, in both cases, it would be somebody who specializes in assessing property taxes. And so I bundled them, but if the committee is concerned about the threshold for the second piece, that could be part of your recommendation.
Yeah, they make sense bundled to me too. It more just like a logistical or technical question of like, do we need it to be resubmitted as a bundle, or can we, a question for our end, can we approve it like that in that form? Yeah.
Sorry, didn't realize my mic was on still. Um, the other thing I think I personally like to do is try to keep just the accounting piece of real estate and personal property separate. So that was sort of my thought of why I submitted them as 2 different requests, because although it's essentially the same idea, it's just personal property versus real estate, even if it is the same consultant. It's sort of for my peace of mind, and for like my accounting side of things, it's nice to keep them separately because throughout all of my other processes, you never combined them. So it could have just been my thought process too that might have
Yeah,
skewed
one's
things.
Kim does every 3 or 4 years, and then the other one is really unique. We haven't requested it before.
Deb, and I think we'd like to keep moving here on the agenda.
Is it $20,000 per year or for all 3 years?
All 3.
Okay, are we good with this piece? I think we understand it. We just have to figure out what to do about it. But I think we all support the work and appreciate that. So thank you for coming in, Kim.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having
Kim.
me.
All right, I'm going to bring in Captain Tang. Let's see if he comes over. It's in the audience. Yep, here he comes.
Good evening, everyone.
Did I say captain? I meant chief. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Years and years and years. I called you Chief Ting. I
Don't let you
apologize.
catch, Sean.
No. I apologize. So Chief, you've got a few projects. I'm gonna share my screen because I've got the spreadsheet version of the request that I submitted. If it's easier, maybe we'll keep track of them that way. But you can go ahead if you want to start explaining the first one, which is the medical response items.
Yeah, so the first one is actually two items. It's AEDs and medical bags. So AEDs are automatic external defibrillators. We're looking for 5 new ones. The ones that we currently have are really outdated and starting to fail, and it's a type of equipment that we just cannot afford to fail out on the street when we're dealing with patients. So the 5 AEDs that we're looking for, they're roughly $2,500 each. And we are also looking for AED pads for adults. We're looking for 10 of them and 2 PD pads. Those are both quite expensive. The AED pads for adults are $40 each. So 10 of them would be $400. The PD pads are $100 each. We're looking for 2. So we do have a small supply, but we're running low on them. So we're looking to supplement the supply that we have. So in total for the AEDs, we're looking at just under 12,500 plus the $600 for the pads. And we are also seeking a complete overhaul of our medical bags and supplies. So this is something that we have requested in the past. We tried to piecemeal it, but we realized that it doesn't really work. We don't have the money within our budget to finance it, and that's why we're asking for a complete overhaul. So our medical bags are about 15 years old, and these are first responder bags that contains all of our medical equipment. And the reason why we're looking for 24 is to outfit all of our cruisers. There's 19 cruisers that we would like to outfit, including our station, one for our cell block, one for our range, and 2 spares. These are utilized every single day on every shift. And included in that package, we are looking for 12 BVM masks and 30 pocket masks because we still have some. And again, these are just to replenish our stock. So in totality, for this particular project, we are asking for the estimate that we have compiled is $15,788.33. So I guess I'll stop there to see if there's any questions.
Yeah, and before I take questions, Kathy reminded me that we're a committee that takes its own minutes, and I need to identify a minute taker. You can go back to the transcript afterwards, or you can look at the video. But can I get somebody who can take care of the minutes for this meeting?
I can, Andy.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jill. Sorry to interrupt, Chief.
That's okay. I just wonder if there's any questions in regards to that request.
Kathy?
I have one not about the need for them, Chief Ting, but with Sean, could the ambulance fund money be used for these since they're part of emergency response?
That's a good question. I don't believe so because this is not something. What we get the ambulance money for is for transporting to the hospital. And that's why we use it to support the EMTs. These in particular, and Chief Ting, correct me if I'm wrong, these are used to stabilize. They support the medical response, but it's really what we get that money for is for the transportation to the hospital and for the EMTs that do that transportation.
Right. So these bags are they're first responder bags. So in any medical call that comes out, we are dispatched along with the fire department and the paramedics. And in most cases, we arrive first on scene. So we try to triage the best that we can until the paramedics arrive. The reason why we arrive on scene is because we're already out there on the street. So we're able to get there quicker than the paramedics. So really, that's primarily the need for it. And again, it's used on every single medical call. So these bags are the ones that we have are falling apart. The equipment that's contained is again 15 years old. So they're really tired. They're used up. So we're looking to replenish that.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. I was curious about the role of the police versus the EMTs, and it sounds like you basically explained that. But Jill,
So is the limitation on the ambulance fund to do with the type of personnel that's using the equipment, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, we could look into it, but we've always been very careful that we use, because it's related to the ambulance ride to the hospital is really what generates the funding, that we've used it to support our EMTs and the equipment that they use as part of providing services. We haven't, as far as I recall, used it for the police response because there's not any insurance. We don't generate the insurance payments based on that. We generate it based on what the EMTs do.
Deb?
What then about the UMass partnership money, Sean? Could that be used?
That money is specifically, I will double check, but I believe that's specifically for firefighters. But I have to go look at the strategic partnership agreement funding, but that money was money that goes into the ambulance fund to support the 4 additional firefighters that were hired several years ago. And then there's money for an ambulance, but there's not additional funding for supplies and things like that.
All right. Do you want to proceed to the next item, Chief?
Sure. And Sean, what do you have as the next item?
The next one's the vehicle replacement.
Okay, so we are seeking for 3 fully outfitted hybrids, patrol vehicles to be replaced. And usually we go upon a cycle. It's a 4-year cycle. We usually ask for 2 and then 2 the next year and then 2 the following year and then 3 for the 4th year. So we are in our 4th year of the cycle. And what we're looking to replace are vehicles that are over 100,000 miles or more or close to that. Simply because once it hits 100,000 miles, the warranty is over on it. And so we generally don't want to put good money into a bad vehicle. And these vehicles are heavily used, 24 hours a day. And when I say they're heavily used, they're used by multiple people. It's not just the same driver. And they're heavy duty, but nevertheless, they are hammered on. Again, they're constantly used, and 100,000 miles on one of these vehicles looks like 300,000 miles on an ordinary vehicle. So we are seeking for 3. We have 3 administrative vehicles that are well over 100,000. They're in the area of 125. 1 patrol vehicle at 70,000 miles and 4 patrol vehicles in the high 70s. So within a year, those vehicles are all going to hit 100,000 or more.
Gabe, can you speak quickly to the lead time? I know with fire vehicles, we're talking 2-3 years. What's the latest lead time for police cruisers?
Usually between 6 months to a year. So the past few years, it's been difficult because of production. And certainly these hybrids are of high demand. So for example, when we were looking for, eventually we'd like to have fully electric vehicles, but currently the technology doesn't support it. If you were to take a look at, how much computers and how many types of, and I'm not a tech guy, but how much equipment that goes into a particular cruiser, a fully electric vehicle just can't handle it. And we can't sacrifice any of these vehicles to be able to fail on us during calls. So the hybrids have been working out very well. But again, even the hybrids are kind of a newer technology. So every year they've been improving and getting a little bit better. So for example, when we last year tried to get a parking enforcement vehicle, the only thing we could get was Ford F-150 Lightning. That was the only thing that was available. And so the question was, why do you need such a big vehicle? It's a pickup truck. It actually worked out very well simply because the pickup portion carries all of the boots. And so that's all the equipment is all right there contained within that vehicle. So our park enforcement doesn't have to go back and forth and get it. So it actually worked out well. But nevertheless, the turnaround time it kind of depends, Sean. It depends on what the inventory is. All of the police departments, we go to a government sponsored vehicle lot to get these cruisers, and all of the agencies in Massachusetts are all fighting for the same cruisers. So I can't give you a definite answer. It just depends on what their inventory is.
No, I wanted you to explain that for the committee because even if it's approved, let's say in June, you're likely not going to see that until the following spring, at the
Correct.
earliest.
And you say you go to a government-sponsored vehicle lot. Does that mean that it's like a state contract and you don't have to worry about paying a different price than other?
Yeah, correct. It's state contract is what I meant exactly.
Okay, I see Jill and I see Deb. Whoever was first, I think it was Jill, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. But I'm happy to just very quickly, just curious if you can explain a little more about the wear and tear piece. You said, if you can explain a little more why like 1 mile looks different on this car, on your cruisers than on other vehicles. I would like to just hear more about that. Thank you.
So these hybrids, for example, are really built for idling. We constantly have to. A lot of times, we have to have our vehicles to be idling, if not because it stops and restarts our computer systems in there, and that becomes problematic. And these vehicles again are run 24/7, 3 different shifts. Shared amongst about 24 patrol officers. So it's different driving habits. And a lot of our calls are emergency type calls. So they are driving them fast or driving them hard. And just a little bit different than what a normal consumer's type of driving would be. And so these vehicles are just they're beat on. To put it bluntly, they are just beat on. And that's kind of the nature of the business when we have these police vehicles, responding to calls.
Deb?
Yeah, I had a similar question. You said, once they're out of warranty, you don't feel that they're reliable anymore. Is that more about the idling time and the usage? Could you explain the connection, please?
Sure. So, after 100,000 miles on these vehicles, again, because of the way that they're driven, if we have an engine failure or transmission failure, we're going to be paying out of our pocket. The warranty is gone. And it's just a lot more prevalent for that to happen at over 100,000 miles. So that's one of our concerns of keeping them long term. And another concern is, again, we can't afford for them to fail on the roads and on the streets when we're responding to calls. That's a huge issue. We have 4 officers on the road at any given time. So that's 3 patrol officers and 1 supervisor. So most emergency type calls requires minimum of 2 officers. So if you have 2 officers, basically 2 hot calls at one time, your whole shift is taken up. So if we are responding to a call and one breaks down, that's a problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this item? Okay. What's next?
The next one, Gabe, is the mobile data terminals for the vehicles.
So in all of our patrol vehicles, we have they're called mobile data terminals. But essentially, they're laptops, laptop computers. So these laptop computers are used to communicate with our dispatch center. They're used for CJIS application. CJIS is Criminal Justice Information System. So that's what ties us in if we have to run a license plate or if we need to gather information from the state, driver history, when we run somebody's license. So these computers are used again 24/7, just like these cruisers are. And unfortunately, if anybody has a computer, that they outlive themselves after about 3 to 5 years or so. So this particular project, we're looking at replacing 15 of our mobile data terminals. This is something that I believe IT has submitted also simultaneously as a project. We work hand in hand with them. And every 5 years, we submit this to replace our MDTs, and we are in our 5th year. So at this point, our MDTs are beginning to fail. They're getting tired. They don't keep up with the current technology when we replace our systems. Yeah, they're just old. So we're looking to replenish those. Oh, one thing to add. So we had asked for 15 and we received an initial estimate of about $5,000 each. So about 4,500 with an extra cushion for installation fees. And we just recently got a newer quote. And we were able to find an estimate of around 2,500 to 3,000 each, so lowering that cost. And again, I believe IT may have submitted a similar project.
So just
So Gabe,
clarity.
just to clarify, it'll be like 60,000 instead of 70,000.
Yes.
If you do 15 times 3,000
So on
each.
the high side, if we said 3,000 each, yeah.
Or so is it you're doing 15,
45.
45,000 and 5,000 for installation or so?
No, well, we figure about 500 just to give a cushion for
Oh,
installation.
500.
So these we found MDTs for about 2,500.
Okay. So we can adjust that in the capital plan and update that before the end of it.
And you said that IT submitted it as well. That I assume that means we're not getting two requests for the same thing.
No, I'll double check, but when I updated the capital plan, I made sure there wasn't a duplicate request for this, but I'll double check with IT to make sure it's not lumped in with something else.
Okay. Kathy?
That was actually my first question, Andy, is that do we have it as a sub of another piece? And the other is 15 for 15 vehicles. Are they wired into the vehicle so you can't take them out of the vehicle?
Correct.
So they're not portable.
Correct. They're not portable.
Okay. So that's why you have to have each vehicle have them.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on this item? Okay, we got one more.
I think that's actually your last item, isn't it?
No, we had one. What's our RMS system? You saw that one?
Yeah, I mean, so I thought you and I spoke about, we wanted to put that on the radar, but I thought we were holding off on that for one more year.
That's correct. And that's certainly something we can hold off on. I don't know if
yeah, why don't you speak to it now? But I think that's one that if you look at the plan itself that was presented, we pushed that off 1 year.
Yep.
I thought that was based on a conversation we and I had.
Sure.
Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and explain it?
So I'll just mention it to everyone. So everybody's kind of familiar with what I'm talking about. So an RMS is obviously that's an acronym for a records management system. So that is a computer program that essentially handles all of our CAD calls, and CADs are computer aided dispatch. So it's something that our dispatchers use, our police officers use, and it stores all of our data. So every single call that comes through is stored within this system. It also produces data points and statistics. And the current system that we have is very old. It's very antiquated. So we've had it since 2001. We were one of the first agencies in the state to have this particular system, and the company is called IMC. So about 80% of the 351 agencies in Massachusetts utilize IMC. But again, that particular company got bought out by another company, so it's no longer being supported. So therefore, it's starting to it's tired, it's old, just like everything else. It doesn't serve our purposes as well as we want it to. So right now, what we've been trying to do is wait and see what other agencies are going towards. We want them to do the field work for us. And once we find a company and a system that works very well, then we'll probably start adopting it simply because it's a huge amount of money.
I was going to say, what's the price range on that?
About 500K.
Oof.
So it's a huge number. And so if we decide to, certainly if we were funded for it and we decided on a particular product, we want to make sure that it's an excellent product. We don't want to expend that kind of money on something that doesn't work for us and that doesn't work for our dispatch center. So, for example, I'm constantly asked for certain types of data points and statistics. The current system that we have wasn't built for that. So trying to mine that information is extremely difficult and sometimes impossible to do. With current systems, they're more up to date in terms of real world police needs, and it satisfies a lot of those things. So in the near future, that's something that we would really need.
Is in the plan, Andy. It's just pushed out a year, so it's already the numbers already in the numbers you've seen. Just it's under FY 28. So not that that makes it that much better, still a lot of money, but it's already factored into those numbers.
Kathy?
I just, Chief Ting, what I don't remember from last time you talked about that, are there potential grant sources for these? Because there's, at the state level, wanting to hold the police more accountable. It's part of a record system where, as you said, you can reach cheap. Are there any sources of money that would help us with that expense?
So we have looked, and to be honest with you, we have not found any type of grants to support this particular product. There's other products, and I don't know if this is the right venue to bring this up, Sean. I sent you an email in regards to body worn cameras, and I don't know if this is the right place to try and introduce
Yeah,
that.
you can. It's not a request for this year, but you can. It may be
Right.
a request in a future year.
So to answer your question, no, we have not found any grants that are willing to support this. Usually with these type of purchases, it's a huge upfront one-time fee, and then annually there's a subscription fee that follows it. So another project that we are looking into is body worn cameras. Certainly we want that transparency and we want that accountability within our police department. So this is something that we're starting to explore. We also are in conversation with our stakeholders in town to try and figure out, is this something that our community wants us to have? It's something that our police department certainly would more than welcome and entertain. Currently, both of our police unions, the patrol side and supervisors union, have already adopted it in the sense that they're getting compensated through a package. If the town decided that we were to obtain body worn cameras. So the research that we've conducted so far, in terms of gathering an estimate, we have 46 officers. So for a department of about 50, if we were to get cameras and the whole system, it's estimated at about $215,000. And that could be reduced down to about 200,000 because we currently use WatchGuard, which is a Motorola product, and we have cruiser cameras. So we already have a little bit of that infrastructure here. So it would probably be about $200,000, and there's definitely grants out there to get the body worn cameras itself. It's just not the storage fee. So the body worn cameras itself, there are grants that earn upwards to about $25,000, which would cover all of our camera costs. So really the cost would be about $175,000 if we were to do that today. So certainly something that we're looking into the future about. I see a question from Jill.
Yeah, Jill.
Yeah, just wondering, you said you're in conversation with stakeholders in town to see if this is something that the community wants to have, and I love that sentiment, and I'm just wondering what that looks like and how you go about that type of process when you're thinking about a capital project like this.
So when I talk about that, certainly, we're a police department for our community. We work for our community, and if it's something that our community wants, if they want that accountability, we are all about it. We've already had internal conversations, not only with our command staff, but with our patrol staff as well, to kind of explore, is this something that would be challenged by our unions? And both of our unions have supported it 100%. I've been in conversation certainly with our town manager to see what his take is on that. We've had conversations with our DEI department and with our CREST department, and certainly with the fire department to try and figure out, is this something internally within our agencies? Is this something that they would like to see? And I would love for the community to weigh in on that as well as a whole. And I welcome any type of platform to discuss that. And we haven't really discussed it very hard simply because it really hasn't been on the table, but that's something that'd be more than welcome to explore.
That sounds like something the council could conceivably help with. Kathy?
So my question is, do you need one per officer or can they share? So, because since they're not all on duty on the same time, so these are not cemented to the car in the same way.
Correct. They're cemented to the officer.
To the officer, right?
So that's something that we could certainly look into. You know, if we purchase, let's say, instead of 50 of them, let's say we had 25, and I don't know the answer to that, if they can be shared or not. My guess is possibly. Again, if this was something that became a little more real, we would certainly look a little bit more into that. I wish I had an answer for you on that right off the top of my head. I don't.
And Gabe, just to repeat what you said, the heavy cost isn't necessarily in the equipment itself; it's in the storage fees
Well,
associated.
that's the biggest one, right? The biggest
maybe
one
that
is
scales down if we have fewer devices, but I'm not sure how that pricing works.
right. So the storage fee is probably the biggest expense, and the subscription fee. So the subscription fee is about 25,000 a year. And then another added variable to that is certainly if we had body worn cameras, we would expect that there would be a tremendous amount of public records requests. So if you take a look at any type of footage, you know, that footage would have to have serious redactions to it. So we would need to hire somebody, preferably a police officer, to overcome challenges of utilizing government, for a lack of a better term, CJIS type of information, so criminal justice information system. So we would need to protect the public from certain things. So that public records angle is going to be huge. We already get a ton of public records requests. If we have body worn cameras, that would probably double or triple. So we would need personnel to assist us with that.
That sounds like something that's more of a future discussion, but I'm glad you raised it today.
Certainly, and I agree with you, Andy. I just throw that out there because that's something that we're beginning to explore, and I just didn't want to surprise anyone.
No, it's certainly is something that is in discussion in general. So it's good to know that you're thinking about it as well. While I have you, I just was curious on the vehicle question again. Have you done any sort of testing of stretching out the length of time that you use those? Have you taken a flyer on one vehicle or two to see how they last if you kept them another year, or is that just risky?
So there's been a lot of data out there, especially with the hybrids, and again the technology is improving, but the current models that we have, we've been having a lot of problems with. We just got back our fully electric vehicle because there was a battery issue. But these hybrids, you know, for example, one of them, one issue that we're having with the hybrids is because of the weight of them, it's causing the tires to wear out more. So we have to replace our tires more often. And that's something that we had never suspected or figured out until we had those hybrids. So there have been a lot of problems with them. So a lot of them have been in the shop more often than your regular gas powered vehicles. I'm hoping that with better technology that they're going to improve on that. But right now it's just been spotty.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an issue.
Okay, well, I see that we've got a couple of DPW people waiting. So I guess, unless there are other questions for the chief, we'll move on. Hearing none, thank you very much, Chief Ting, and thanks for all your work. Everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's time. Have a good evening.
So, Sean, do you want to?
Yeah. So next up is the DPW, and this one again, I'll pull up the spreadsheet. Guilford, I'm thinking. So we have Guilford Morin, our Superintendent of Public Works, and Amy Rosecki, the Assistant Superintendent of Public Works here. Guilford, I'm thinking I'll pull up the spreadsheet and maybe go in that order in terms of explaining the projects, just to keep track of where we're at. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm looking to the right because that's where the spreadsheet should appear, is to my right, and my camera's on the left. So I'm not ignoring you. Seven's not the first one, is it?
Did it pop up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're seven in
Yeah.
this list because it's all
Seven.
projects.
Yeah, seven's okay. Sorry. All right. So the first one is PFAS testing. We have been required to do PFAS testing for quite a while now. There's actually money coming to the town through a PFAS settlement. And so what we want to do is we want to use it as a capital project every year to do our PFAS testing and meet our requirements. We have requirements in water, wastewater, and at the landfill. So those three areas require us to test for PFAS. There are different types of testing, but we usually spend around 30,000 a year for doing that. And then the funding for this would come from the PFAS money that comes to the town. It wouldn't really come from the general, but we put it in the capital. The transportation planning, we've been doing this for a while now. We ask for 50,000 a year right now to actually have money available to do any type of study or any type of analysis that needs to be done. This is the money that started the project at well, for lack, I can't remember the new name of the school, but at the old Wildwood, we used these funds to do the traffic, to start the traffic study at that school. So we asked for about 50,000 each year. We spend most of it well, actually we have a year or so left over, but we do spend it and we do use it. Stormwater management plan, we're asking for 160,000 this year. This is part of our stormwater management permit we have with the federal government. This year we're asking a little more than normal because we're actually going to do a project. Do you want to scroll over a little bit to the right, Sean? I think I put it in here. No, I didn't. We actually have a project we're proposing to do inside the inside the Fort River Basin to help with a project that's going on with the state to identify what's causing the E. coli issues in that area, and then the project would actually try to mitigate some of the E. coli that's getting in the fecal coliform that's getting into the river basin. Our fuel system and vehicle management system. The price of this as an estimate is $100,000. There's three parts to this. The fuel system is what controls our fuel pumps now and keeps track of who's purchasing fuel or taking fuel from the tanks, and then how we allocate funding for the fuel. We have one fuel system and all the divisions take fuel from it. Today the fire department took it from us for a while because they were having a problem with their system. So we have to keep track, and then we allocate funding, who's buying what fuel, and then we balance the budget with that. So that system is not really working right now. It's on a really old computer. Actually, it isn't a DOS computer anymore. I think it's like a Windows 7 computer now is what it is. It's a standalone computer. There's no interface. It's very hard to get reports, and it's actually been failing, and it's been date time stamping things a little weird. So we want to buy a new system. That's the first part. The second part is to upgrade the hardware in the system, which are the pumps and the devices that tell the level in the fuel tanks. They have to be inspected every year, and we're having some problems with those. The third part is to go to a vehicle management and tracking system. And that is been proposed a few years and just been discussed, and people are all on board with it. The unions are on board with it, and we're thinking that now might be the time for doing the fuel system. to integrate it all into one system at one time. The downside of buying anything computer related in the 21st century is that you always have to have an annual subscription fee. I imagine in the next few years when you go have your child, the hospital will ask you to pay your subscription fee and then you'll have to renew it every year too. But right now, for almost all the computer software we buy, it's a subscription fee, annual subscription fee that comes as well. So when we do this, there'll be an increase in the regular budget for the annual subscription fees. You went
Why
away,
don't we
Sean.
stop? Yeah, why don't we stop there? Why don't we do 4 or 5 projects and then stop for questions? Just is that
So,
okay, Andy, if we do it that way?
yeah, that's great. Kathy?
Yeah, Guilford, on this vehicle management system. As I read the write up, it seemed like you're looking to manage the use better and manage the cost. Does it pay for itself? So if we're spending $100,000 to track things, does that mean we save some amount of money or some labor time? Or is it just tracking for sort of explain what the benefit we get out of this?
I'm not a very, I'm an engineer. I'm not a financial person. And when you talk to these computer companies that tell you they can make everything, they can track things and make your system work better and save you money. I don't really buy into that. We have to do what we have to do. It doesn't really matter. What we do get out of it is we do know who's getting fuel and how much fuel they're getting it and when they're getting it. We're not able to do that now. The system's kind of broken. So we are able to track fuel. We are able to look at that data and say, well, why are you getting so much fuel and why is you using so much fuel? That's something we can get and we can use to see if we can curb and find out who's just cruising around town, buying lottery tickets and not really working. This GPS part of it would help us, and then being able to dispatch people and can know where people are during snowstorms. The next step, if we do the GPS tracking, would then be to bring in the software which lets you show the community how you're plowing the streets and where the plows are and when they did it. It also can be used for tracking the street sweeper, which actually has been found in some communities to save them on insurance money, where someone says, oh yeah, the street sweeper went by and hit my car. And they go back and they look for the street sweeper and the street sweeper was nowhere near that neighborhood, but they use that as an excuse to try to get a car that's been hit and they don't know what happened to it. That's a use for it. So there are uses that may help us. The biggest use is just tracking what fuel we're using and who's using it when.
Guilford, can you quickly clarify, would this only be for the DPW vehicles or could it be used for all town vehicles?
Once we buy the system, you can scale it up for all town vehicles, or you can just leave it in the public works department. That would be something for the future for another discussion.
And remind me, the schools, so all departments, that have vehicles fill up at our pumps and then we have a system that fills back. Is that based on the fire department's fuel system, not the DPW's fuel system?
No, right now we have 4 ways of fueling. The school has their way of fueling. Fire department has fueling. The police will either fuel at the fire department or I think they sometimes fuel at a private station. And then we have our own. So it's we divide up our cost by the enterprise systems and the general fund. So the water pays for their fuel, sewer pays for their fuel, solid waste pays for their fuel, and then the general fund vehicles come out of another pot of money for fuel.
So the schools don't fill up once upon a time, they used to fill up at the fire station. Buses.
You'd have to ask the fire department that.
Okay, I think that's where they fill up because they would provide a report to the schools to basically get billed for the fuel they use. All right, thank you, Guilford.
Did I answer the question?
Jill and then Deb.
I was just wondering sorry, taking notes, getting my notes back. the transportation planning, the second one, if you could just give an example of a type of study that you're thinking about for this year, just so I can kind of grasp what, even if you haven't maybe selected the specific work that you're going to be doing with those funds, what is like an example of something that's high on your list for that?
So with the new transportation committee that's coming forward, they'll actually start prioritizing some more requests from residents about traffic calming and traffic issues. Speed concerns have been the biggest issues that keep popping up. We'll take this fund and we'll probably bring a consultant in for the specific item they want to have studied and pay with this money with the consultant. So the consultant would be hired with this money.
Just to add to that quickly, so we received about 10 resident capital requests that were specifically related to traffic, road improvements, traffic calming. And so those requests have been forwarded to Guilford and will be brought to that new transportation committee. So this money could be used potentially to, depending on what those requests are, to support some of those. And then a specific project, Guilford, my recollection is, wasn't this Southeast Street, like sidewalks? Was there a request a while ago? I think Tony Cunningham submitted it as a resident capital request to explore sidewalks. And I think that one we actually ended up doing, right?
On Southeast Street?
I thought I remember there was one that came a few years in a row and then we ultimately ended up doing it. I thought the transportation planning money kind of did the initial engineering work, design work. I could be wrong. That one stuck out.
I think Tony was
Um,
probably the but
I don't remember that one. We did do a speed and traffic study on Southeast Street, and we used these funds for it. That was a little while ago. We've used some of these funds we used it for an analysis at Cushman to put in the safety zones. Stuff like that is what we used it for.
Is there somewhere where that information is accessible for the public?
No.
The past uses, the past projects and costs?
Um,
Or no?
I don't keep track, but we could go back through the Munis system and pull out the accounts, and what was charged to the accounts is the easiest way to do it.
Jill, I'll make a note of that and we can provide that information to you.
I've been
Or to
asked
this
about
committee.
in the past, so yeah, if it's not a huge pain, it would be
No, we can
interesting to
we can
find out.
gather that.
Thank you.
Deb?
Hi, yeah, can we talk about the fuel and vehicle management system? Because I didn't get the clear sense it's considered high priority, but I didn't get the clearest sense. Kathy asked about the financial benefits. You talked about like lottery tickets, and I just got lost in the
Sorry.
description, and I'd like to hear what part of it is high priority, if you don't mind.
The most important piece is that the fuel system controls the gas pumps. So you cannot get gas from these pumps unless you have the correct credentials and the pumps recognize the credentials. And that's what the fuel system's most important job is. So right now you go up to the gas pumps, there's a kiosk. You have to put in your key for your car. That car or vehicle, that vehicle key is confirmed on the database that's one of ours. Then you have to enter the mileage, which isn't really working now, but you still have to enter the mileage. And then you have to swipe your employee card. So there's two forms of verifying, yes, this is one of our vehicles. Yes, this is a town employee and he should be getting this fuel. And then you can fill your vehicle. That's the most important part. And we're having some problems with that working correctly right now. It's we can't always verify. Well, it's mixing up things. It's not letting people not. Well, that's not letting people who aren't supposed to use it, but you can't really guarantee 100% that that was truly a wastewater card, a wastewater vehicle, and it was a wastewater employee who did that. Sometimes they get mixed up in the system now because the system isn't working very well, the computer software. So that's the most important part of it. The next piece would be if we go to the GPS routing, then you'd be able to track vehicles and see where they are and see how much fuel usage is being used and what they're doing. You will also be able to see based on mileage, if the mileage entry function worked properly, you'd be able to see, well, this vehicle drove 200 miles in a day. Why is he driving 200 miles in a day? Was it a storm event? Was he just doing calls? Was that really right? And so that data, we cannot collect that data now either. So we can't look at that. So those are the two most important pieces, is verifying who's supposed to be getting gas and it's going to the right place. And the second one is just a quick review of, did you drive too many miles? Did you drive not enough miles? Is the fuel going someplace else maybe? And something like that.
Where
So
this
are they,
really quickly, where this could save money, Deb, going back to your question, if we could get all of the town on this system, over the next year or two, basically we monitor vehicles once a year. We get a good snapshot of their mileage and their usage. If there was a way to get all vehicles on the same system that the town operates so that we could monitor usage in real time and grab those reports really easily. Right now, it's a very manual, cumbersome process where people have to go out and check, and we get, it's not all on the same day and it's random. If we could get it so it's kind of at our fingertips, we would be in a much better position to look at our vehicle fleet and say, maybe we can shave off 10% because we'd be able to monitor the mileage so much better. And we'd also then have better data on fuel usage by departments and things like that. So I don't know, Guilford, I'd have to help commandeer some of this for the rest of the town, but I could see potential cost saving benefits if we're able to get the whole town on it.
and so are they two different parts of the same thing or just different levels of a system?
Right now, the system we're looking at is one. The piece I just talked about is really one piece. If you go with the GPS tracking, that's a third piece. I mean, a second piece.
Thank you.
Jill?
So sorry, this 100,000 would be something that would be possible to be expanded to the whole town? Just want to make sure I understand that correctly. Or that would be
Yes.
additional.
Well, you'll have the backbone, and once you have the backbone, then you can add pieces and modules onto it. But those extra modules will cost you, and when you expand beyond a certain number of vehicles, your annual fee goes up as well.
Okay, and then just very quickly on the have you explored the piece you were describing that isn't working properly? Have you explored fixing or any sort of like repair to the current system, and is that possible?
No, it's not. Is that well, this is kind of like Gabe's comment about computers only lasting 5 years. It's no one services the software, and they do not sell this software anymore. So it's totally obsolete, and the parts that we could use to fix the pumps and so forth wouldn't talk to the system. So we need to kind of replace the whole system.
Okay, should we move to the next?
I'll go slower. So our next request is we request every year at least $50,000 to repair sidewalks around town. Last 4 or 5 years this has been increased, but we use this to just fix problems we have and to make repairs. We don't really use it for big improvements. We take more of the road money or more other money like CDBG money to do those repairs. We have a contract that we've put out 2 years ago, and we have 1 year left on that contract to make repairs. We plan to be working on the sidewalks in the southeast College Street area. There's some problems with those concrete sidewalks. We're going to try to fix those this year, and this money would go towards that. Should I stop?
I'm wondering if you can sort of get through all of the road and sidewalk stuff, and we could take questions on all of those and see how they fit together.
Okay. Our road resurfacing, That request is $500,000. We've been making this the last few years. This is town funds to supplement our Chapter 90 and our sidewalk funds. And we use this to repair roads and to also do different repairs throughout town. It is combined with Chapter 90, which is the number you see below. It's 841. 841 is not town money. 841 comes from the state in what they call the Chapter 90 program. There are limits to what you can spend Chapter 90 money on. You can't buy vehicles that are not used for maintaining the town roads. You can only buy certain size vehicles, and then you can pay for any type of repair work you want to do on the town roads. You can repair traffic lights, you can repair the pavement, you can repair culverts, you can repair other things with this money. The one I skipped is the request for Southeast Street intersection changes. That's the money to do create a model and prepare and do analysis on the types of intersection changes we could possibly have. So those 4 things are specifically for roads and intersections right now.
And then, okay, and Kathy?
Well, I'll wait for others too, but I have several questions on these. One on Chapter 90. Your number is on the low side here. It's the old number that we used to get because we're getting the supplement with fair share. So I would just like to see, I don't need you to answer this now, but Sean, I'd like to see the past 3 years, total Chapter 90 from the 2 sources, how much the town budget in the capital plan has allocated and how much additional we've put in from free cash when we've certified it. Just an accounting, because the numbers have been in the well over $1 million range. Guilford's number is accurate up until 2 or 3 years ago. That we were just at a flat same dollar year after year. I just like to see it, and then how much we've spent. So I just like to see the flow of funds. So that's a request. Then on the 500,000, Guilford, this was on the list last year too. And we pressed you hard, and you said you could probably do it for 250. And then there was extensive discussions in TSO on much more minimal changes than the kinds of things you were talking about. Widening a road, putting allowing the buses to turn on a stoplight on and off, potentially taking part of the public way by the red building on the north exit of the schools. None of which needs a major study. I think your internal engineers could do a lot of that work. It's a question. And if we could decide on what we wanted to do, we could then apply for state grant money, including grants that are specific for roads and intersections near schools. So what I don't understand is we just keep seeing this round number of 500,000 with nothing underneath it, as opposed to a few things have been identified that people are interested in. And there was a rejection of the 6 roundabouts or the 5 roundabouts in the intersections. And so I'm worried about a large amount of money being spent in a way that doesn't get us any closer to yes. I think we want to spend the money to do a good assessment when we have a clear idea of consensus around an approach, because that also would then, as the way I understand the state grants would work, if you knew what you wanted to do, you could probably get state money to help you to do it. So I'm questioning both 500,000. Last year, you said you could do it for 250. And are we any closer? It's 12 months now since the last time we talked about this. So the 2 pieces are how much for roads, and then how much have we spent each year, and then this 500,000.
So I'll answer the 500,000 for the Southeast Street design. So you could, if you spend $250,000, you could make the basic model you need to start doing any analysis you want. You can analyze it with widening the road, turn signals, adding turn lanes. You can analyze it with roundabouts and signals. You can analyze it any way you really want to kind of flip it around, but you need to do the model setup and get the model ready. And our consultant has given us a price of $250 to do that. No one on my staff, including myself, has the knowledge to do this in detailed, in-depth analysis on a recurring basis where someone keeps throwing in, oh, how about this? Oh, how about that? We don't have the time or the knowledge to do it quickly enough to answer that question. So you're going to have to hire a consultant to do it. If you want to hire somebody else, that's fine. But our consultant right now says it's in the 250 range. If you come to an agreement on a design, they're saying it's probably another 250 to just make the final design documents so we can bid the intersections. So that's where the 500 comes in. So you can cut it in half and do the first part, or you can fund the whole thing, and then when you do the first part and you're ready to do the second part, the money is already appropriated. So there's multiple ways to do that, and I'd leave that up to you. I really have no concern about doing it, except for the fact that if you don't build the model, if someone doesn't build the model and put the work into doing that, you're not going to get very good answers, and you're not going to get what you want out of this.
I won't belabor this because I may be the only person that feels this way, but I know over in Snell Street, you all did very creative work on figuring out a mini roundabout there that allowed driveways to come in and out. You've got some creative engineers. If we're not doing the super sophisticated modeling, if we're saying widen the road and pieces. So that's just, I'd like to get closer to what do we want to do rather than 5 variations and look at them. I'm not looking for a model. And just so people that you use the same modeler, they did a model up in North Amherst. And when I went out and asked about it, I think it's the same group, when they put in a particular roundabout. And I said, but the street isn't wide enough. And they said, well, they didn't do a full survey. And I said, I just measured it with a tape measure. It's not wide enough for 3 lanes. And they said, oh, by the way, you have to buy a house to have a turning lane. That wasn't in the report. So I also worry that some of the off the shelf stuff is not fine tuned enough to really looking at some more practical solutions for this area. And so that's just a response. So Sean, I just worry about if it's a big amount of money, we'll spend it all and we won't be any closer to an answer. That's my concern.
And just to clarify, and I will send a spreadsheet out before the next meeting. I've given you all the requests that departments have submitted because I want to make sure you guys hear everything that came in. This is not on the plan for FY27 right now. This is in the further conversation bucket. So I just want to, and there's been some others where like the dollar amounts were a little different. So I will send you a side by side just so you have it for your records of what was submitted and then what's in the plan. So you'll know when you hear these whether it's in the plan as of right now.
Okay, so because I didn't think I saw this in your spreadsheet. So what you're saying is I'm right that wasn't there right now.
That it's not in the plan right now, but it was a request.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Deb? You're muted.
Sorry. I'm trying to understand how these pieces fit together, and I'm looking at the packet memo from Monday from the town manager, and I don't see $500,000, and I see a different amount from chapter 90. So I see a total, but can you tell me which chunk of that total this represents?
Yeah.
So
the road.
capital, can I do this, Sean?
Sure.
Sorry, I'll do it so you don't get in trouble. So the capital requests were asked for before the end of the year. So what you have here is the capital requests that were asked for at the beginning of the year. What you have from the memo from the town manager is the town manager was asked to come up with a plan to identify the shortfall in road paving. So there are 2 separate items or 2 separate entities. You have a plan from the town manager that we put together that we can probably keep the roads from deteriorating more. And then you have our regular request, which is in the joint capital planning request. So you have two separate requests. They can be married together, and if you do if they approve the town's request, then the changes can be made to our capital request in the regular joint capital process. But they're two separate items. A normal request, and then the town manager was told or asked to put together a plan to fix roads.
So then, are they overlapping in any way, or is they're totally
Yes.
independent? Okay.
They do overlap. The plan does take into account our Chapter 90 money, and I always use the lower number because the state has always taken the higher numbers away. Even though they say they're going to give you that, they may take it away. And then the 500,000 is accounted for in the town manager's plan as well.
But there was a supplemental from the closeout of FY27. Where is that one?
The town supplemental,
No, the Chapter 90.
I don't include those in my numbers. They're not guaranteed.
Supplemental was for FY26. This is a request for FY27.
So
So
that's
the supplemental
third.
appropriation. So
Okay.
supplemental right now, what Guilford has put in the plan and in the Chapter 90 request, honestly, it's not really a request. Whatever we get, we get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're just putting a placeholder in it so that this committee has a sense that there is additional money that can be put towards roads. But ultimately, we don't have any choice over it. It's whatever we get. So the number
I
that
just want to say
Guilford has in there from FY26 was the older number. There was when the state used to fund Chapter 90 at about 200 million a year. They did increase that to about 300 million a year, but as Guilford noted, they could always cut it back. But they did increase that to about 300 million a year, which is the higher number that you see in the 5-year road improvement plan that I think you're looking at.
Yeah.
And then in FY26, there was also a one-time supplemental, and sometimes the state does this, but it's not something we would ever budget for or plan on. There was a one-time supplemental for like another 300,000 in FY26. But what you see there that Guilford was speaking to is a request for FY27.
So the 800,000 that he's asking for is not 800 plus 300, which is what I'm seeing on the memo, which is 11.
No, unrelated. No.
Okay.
No,
Thank you.
the actual amount we got in FY26 was actually 1.4 million. So we got about 1.1 and sort of from the regular $300 million appropriation, and then we got another 300,000 that was supplemental.
Okay.
And it's from the fair share amendment. It's the millionaire's tax that an allocation was, and that's been consistent for 3 years. It's not always the same dollar amount, but Joe Cumberford succeeded in getting it mileage level rather than economic activity. So it particularly benefited how many miles we have of roads. So that's what bumped up the base rate. So it wasn't just another pot of money. It was actually linked to a tax, a revenue source. The half of fair share of the millionaire's tax that was supposed to go to roads and bridges, and it's been helping Amherst a lot. But it's not, it falls in Guilford's budget not by a request at all, as Sean said. Deb, we just get the money, and this is what it can be used for. Yeah.
Okay, Jill, you've been waiting for it. Yeah.
Just really quickly back on the Southeast Street situation, and I just had a follow-up question on that because Kathy, you mentioned that this request had kind of come around before, and I get asked about this a lot. Obviously, the school building project is a big visible thing in town, and people are wondering about that area of the road. Can you just quickly, maybe this question is for Kathy, like just give us a really quick overview of where if it went through TSO already, or like what has kind of happened to date on that?
It's been at TSO, and there was a Guilford team produced a potential study that showed multiple roundabouts at the two big intersections, but also at the two entrances. and there was not a overwhelmingly positive reaction to that, and the price tag for that was in the $6 million range. Um, so there was a lot of back and forth that didn't end with a consensus. Didn't end with a okay, let's look at something else. So it's sitting with TSO, and TSO is the engine that would be driving, getting nearer to. We actually want to see these pieces. So the kinds of things that you could make a 3-lane road there by taking part of the green. There, you could go up to where the north entrance, well, cars will be coming in. There's a commercial house there. It's an attorney. Part of that's a public way. You could add a sweep. Guilford had pointed that out. So those are kinds of things that could be done, but there wasn't a do those together. Do we want to do anything with the intersection roundabout or change the signalization of them? The south entrance works pretty well. Then there was a discussion of the slanted road that comes in. There's a cutoff by the bank that you can avoid the light by coming through, that comes right in where the buses go in and out of the driveway. Can we shut that off? So these were all pieces that have been discussed, but there wasn't any, yes, this is what we're going to do. So Andy's on that committee now, and it's been on the to-do list to keep it going on, get to a point where, it's not going to happen now before the school opens. So, and that's sitting squarely with the town. It wasn't part of the design team that built the school. The design team was told for the off-campus part of the project, that's the town.
So how do we go forward with that? It's in TSO?
It's in TSO, yep.
Go ahead, Jill.
Is that contingent on this funding request for
well, it's not,
services?
that's been the issue, Jill. So for example, for the discussions we've just been had about free cash, if we had a pretty good idea what we wanted to do, we could have grabbed some of the free cash to get it to more sophisticated design. And so right now, putting money on the table without knowing what you can do, you can spend the money pretty easily. So it would be better to get clear to what you want to do and then tap into money. So I think Sean has just tabled it because it's a big amount of money, and figure out. And TSO last time said we're not ready. So last year it was 500,000 in year one and 6 million in year two, and TSO basically said no, that just we're not ready for that. So
is that something that the new transportation committee would be taking on, or is that still TSO?
Well, I think it's still with TSO because the Transportation Commission isn't doing major changes in a roadway, on a, do you really want to redesign a road? It's doing more minor, at least the way it's set up. But Andy, your guess is as good as mine. The town staff at the schools started asking for work on this 2 years before the first shovel went into the dirt for the school, Anna. And it's just been sitting there. It's not an easy thing to figure out. I mean, this is not, you wouldn't ideally build a school that close to two major intersections. And that just happens.
Yeah.
But it was known when the site was chosen. I'll just say that it was known when the site was selected.
It wasn't unanimously chosen. Right.
All right. So that sounds like something we need to have discussions that are going to be outside of this meeting, but that's an issue that we're going to have to come back to, I guess.
Yeah. And then the other thing I just want to say is that can be grant money for it. So it doesn't have to all be the town money to implement, but you don't get the grant money till you know what you want to do.
Okay. All right. So we've identified an issue. Do we want to go through the rest of the items on the list?
So the next one is number 16, which is a hot box. And we already have one, but when we were talking about the town manager's plan to repair roads or more quickly, one of the things is potholes. The one hot box we have, we often empty it before the day's out. So if there was a second hot box, we could either have a crew work all day, or we could have two crews work until they're empty. So we were asking for another hot box. They're about 65,000, and it basically takes asphalt, reheats it, so we can use it to patch the potholes. Let me keep going.
Sure.
The traffic signal improvements, we've been asking for that for a while now. We've been we've been upgrading the controllers mostly, and then upgrading the lights and sensors so they work a little better. So that's what this is. We've done 3 intersections right now. We'd like to go in and do the intersections in the center of town, which are probably the next ones we'll do. We're going to probably do South Pleasant and College Street, and then Main Street and Amity Street. Those would that would help a lot in getting traffic through the center of town. Our tree removal requests, we
Sorry,
do this.
Gilbert, is that to make them smart intersections rather than just sort of, the same time on each light kind of thing?
Well, some of our intersections they're already computerized, and they can sense who's coming and who's not coming, and they can act accordingly. But we're switching to a system called No Traffic, which is an AI enhanced system to control the lights, and actually all the lights can talk together. So it's kind of a new system, and it is more of a smarter type light. It's much more ahead of the game right now than most of the traffic signals we have. The three we have are the 2 lights in front of Fort River, the Main Street and the College Street light. Those work much better now and actually help people get in and out of the schools better. And then the third one we have is the first one we put in, which is on Meadow Street. That's it. The one is helping that one there.
Okay, thanks.
The tree removal support is we do this just about every year, but this is to help us take care of the taller trees. Eversource won't take all our bad trees down, so we have to bring a crane in sometimes to actually take a tree down. We use this money to hire the crane. Sometimes we'll bring in a contractor if it's something we don't think we're capable of doing. We use this money for that. And then we also use it to get rid of the wood waste. We bring in equipment to grind the wood up, so it's not just sitting around in a pile. And then we get into the vehicle replacements. We have several vehicles, and we try to replace a few every year. This is a 1 ton for tree and grounds, which does the maintenance of the commons and school grounds and so forth, school recreation grounds and the town recreation grounds. We're also trying to replace one of their 1 ton, half-ton trucks, which is a pickup truck. We put plows on all our pickup trucks, so the 1 ton would have a plow as well. That's why they cost a little more. Highway has a request for a 1 ton as well. And then two pieces of equipment that's really in bad shape are our loader and our mower. We have 2 loaders, and what we do is the newest loader is kept at the highway department. The oldest loader is sent to the transfer station, but both loaders are used in snow plowing. And because of the condition of the oldest loader, we have not been able to put it back on the road for the last 2 years. So we're down a loader. It wasn't too bad last year, but we're really starting to experience a bit of a pinch right now with the snow. So we need the second loader. So this is a request for to get a new loader. We'll replace the one in highway and send the highway one to the transfer station. The price on this was a ballpark estimate, and we now have a quote, and the quote is more in the 275 range, not the 420 range. And then we have one roadside mower. We used to belong to a cooperative where we paid a little bit and we shared a mower, and then we had already bought a mower when we joined the cooperative, and we planned that when our mower needed a replacement, it'd be our turn to get a new mower from the cooperative. but the cooperative no longer exists. They stopped 2 years ago. So we need to replace our roadside mower, and that price is about $250,000. This is if you haven't seen it, it's like the mowers, the large mowers you see on the side of the interstates working, and we use those to cut the side of the roads in Amherst. As a placeholder, we put in $500,000 for the DPW facility. More than likely, at the rate we're going, we won't need that next year. We'll still be spending the current appropriation for the new DPW facility. So this is just a placeholder, and it'll probably get moved to next year's. It'll get moved to 28, not 27. War Memorial Pool Bathhouse replacement. We put the full amount that we needed to finish the project, but right now, community preservation money has agreed or is being recommended to spend on this. So this can actually be probably reduced to about $400,000 for engineering cost only. There was no engineering cost in the Community Preservation Act request. And that's all of ours.
Questions? Deb.
Can you summarize? I'm new to all of this. Can you summarize the DPW facility replacement part that I don't understand the $500,000 for replacing the DPW.
That is for engineering study and design work. If we need it, is what it is. You can't replace the DPW for $500,000.
No.
We leak more in the middle school roof leaks. And our mold issue is probably just as good. But you can't, that's just for the design work, keep the design work going.
So $500,000 a year for the design work, or it just is every year until you have that in hand?
It was a placeholder we put in there, just 500,000. We were given money 3 years ago, and we're still spending that money. So you can probably ignore that one for now and just move it to the next year.
Okay. And then I had a question about, I'll get at the end of the queue.
Eugene, and then Jill.
This is just this is specific, I think, to the loader item that you have, and in general, you talked about we have two loaders now. You talked about replacing one and then shifting the one from the highway to the dump. What happens to the old one? Is that sold for scrap value? Do we mothball that?
No, usually when we do a loader, we trade them in.
Okay. So the number that's in the budget is the net minus the estimated trade-in value?
It's not, because we've never used this mechanism for purchasing a loader yet, so we're not sure how they do the trade-in. So we have the full value, and then if we get a trade-in, there'll be money left over in the account, and that'll get rolled back. That'll get released and sent back to the capital fund.
Cool. And I'm assuming, I don't know, that's not a question for you. I should have asked it to when the police presentation was happening. I'm wondering if that's what also happens with they're obsolete or worn out.
Yeah, they also get traded in as well. When they replace a cruiser, they'll trade it in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Then Jill, and then I think Kathy, and then Deb. Deb's still up.
Sort of a similar and small question, just on I think it was the mower, and maybe the loader also had this terminology, but when you say need to replace, is that, like, thinking about the mower as an example, is that we won't be able to mow if we don't replace it, or does it are you preempting issues? Like, how are you categorizing things in that way?
This last 2 years, the mower has spent probably half the season down instead of being mowing. So right now we're having a problem keeping the machine operation.
Kathy?
This is actually a question for Sean. Some of the numbers we just saw aren't in the 5-year plan first year. So I think the 500,000 wasn't in for DPW. You have it in later. So I just wanted to point out to people, you'd already pointed out some of the pieces. So it's Guilford said shift it. But then the flips, some of the pieces where Guilford is giving us new numbers for numbers that we're in, you'll be adjusting those. Is that correct?
And so some of them have already been adjusted. So for example, if you look at the capital plan, I was able to adjust the loader number in the plan itself. So in that plan, I've got the let me see, it's 270 for the loader. Or sorry, no, 275, as Guilford mentioned earlier, for the loader. So that one's already caught or updated in the plan. I had asked Guilford, just based on the request that we received and how it exceeded the money we had available, to prioritize the vehicles that were submitted, and Guilford had prioritized the loader and the mowers being the highest priority this year. And then the DPW facility request money, as Guilford mentioned, we had about a $2 million appropriation. We spent a little bit of it. That is going towards design and OPM fees. The next time we come back to the council to request funds, it'll probably be just to request funds for the rest of the project at some point. We're going to use those funds to get a good cost estimate, and then it'll be working with the council to decide when the time is right to fully fund the project. We don't want to kind of piecemeal the funding of a new building too much. And then the $500,000 for War Memorial, I think that's one, again, that we have in the analysis stage, because we've got the CPA request that's going through the process. We have to see what happens with that. We also have prior money that was approved. And so it's really about bundling it all together and seeing where we're at.
And this is just, I want to encourage people to look at what Sean presented last week. There's a set of tables that don't exactly match the table. The numbers don't, and some rows are missing. So that's the current, came from the manager as the proposed piece. So if we're hearing other projects we think should be on it, that would increase the expenditure. Some have already been removed. That was just my point, that some of the numbers, if you try to line them up. Yeah.
And again, the table I'll provide you between now and next meeting will do that work for you, so you can see what was submitted and then what made it into the plan, so you don't have to try to go back and forth between the requests. But yeah, when we get the requests, again, we do an initial pass. Some things are just rejected. Some things are pushed off a year, not included in FY27. Some things are put in the more analysis because we don't think they're quite ready to go. And some things, just quite frankly, we don't have funding for. And so there's a bucket for, we don't have funding for it. It might be a good project, but we don't have a way to pay for it right now. And we're going to see a lot of that in the next few years, again, as we take on the debt for the 3 building projects, and try to balance how much capital funding we have for these projects.
So what we're hearing in these presentations is sort of a hybrid of what was requested, and then we look at what's actually in the plan. Yeah,
because I wanted to give you everything for transparency's sake, and to for the community, for transparency's sake, because maybe you have a different take on something. For example, maybe there's something that we didn't put in the plan, that you say, you know what, after hearing the presentation and weighing everything that I've heard, what you think that it should be in the plan, that's a higher priority than maybe something else. So I didn't want to exclude that information. I'd rather the committee have it all.
I think that's useful. Thank you. Deb?
Sean, can you put the spreadsheet back up that you were cycling through?
Yep. Hold on one second. All right, should be up in 1 second.
So where does the War Memorial Bathhouse fit into what you were just saying, what's in the plan versus what the requests were for?
So let me try to explain or kind of reiterate what I think Guilford said earlier. So when Guilford submitted this request for $2 million, it was prior to, there was also a request submitted to CPA for $1.5 million.
Yeah.
The CPA committee recommended that project. So Guilford has said that this $2 million, those were submitted in both places. And sometimes projects get submitted in both places to see what happens. And so this request now, according to Guilford's estimates, could be reduced down to 500,000. Now it's not in the plan yet because I feel like we still need to, as a group on our side, Guilford, me and Paul and others, look at all the, wait, first we need to see if the CPA money is ultimately approved. And then look at all the funding sources we have available and what the design is and the cost estimates and determine if a final chunk needs to be requested.
When is CPA? When will you know about the CPA definitively?
Yeah, so it's supposed to be presented to the council, I think, at their second meeting in March, which then it would get referred to Finance Committee, which would be in April. And then we'd hold a hearing on it sometime likely in April, and then it would be voted by the council, depends on their schedule, but late April, sometime in May, possibly.
Yeah, Mandy thought as of a week ago that it would be at the March 9th council meeting. So
yeah, I think I just read it got pushed back a meeting,
and
but I could be
it
wrong.
may get because the agenda. So we were going to see it at the end of March, but it sounds like you're saying it's going to be pushed back maybe to April.
I thought I just saw an email pushing it back one meeting.
So when do we vote on our pieces of this?
So this will be voted on likely in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it also doesn't mean potentially that this piece couldn't be part of a supplemental appropriation next year as well, if it doesn't make it into the final, if this is recommended by JCPC as high priority and it doesn't make it into the final plan for FY27, it could be a supplemental consideration next year by the council.
Okay. Anything else on DPW at this point?
No, those are our requests.
Well, you guys have a lot on your plate and a leaky roof, so we appreciate the work and we look forward to considering this, and thank you for coming in, Kathy.
Yeah, and the only thing I request, Guilford, is on the trucks that you've listed that we would be replacing another. Can you work with Sean to circle one that's getting replaced on our big vehicle list? We have a list of all the vehicles.
Yep. We'll update the list.
So I just want to see a circle. We're replacing this one. We're replacing that one. Sean, just on a, what's going away if we go with these vehicles?
Yep. Yeah, we can do that.
All right. Thank you, Guilford and Amy. Appreciate your work and thanks for coming in.
Welcome. Bye.
Do we have any, Kathy, do you have your hand up for a comment?
Oh, no, I just have an hard time.
It froze there for a minute. Yeah. Okay. Do we, public comment? We have 2 people in the audience. If any of you would like to make a comment, raise your hand and we'll bring you in. I'm not seeing any hands raised at this point. Sean, do you see anything? No. Okay.
Nope.
Any final comments from the group or any matters not anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting? Jill.
Just a really quick question on so much of this has to do with vehicles, and I feel like somebody maybe asked this in the first meeting and maybe I just can't remember, but do we have a vehicle replacement policy, or is there something that we can reference that we've already kind of decided on that will help us as we make decisions related to vehicles?
Can I speak to that, Andy?
Yeah.
So the only policy I'm aware of is it's more of a sustainability policy around when we replace vehicles, what type of vehicle it gets replaced with, and there may have been a change to it, but it has to be a more efficient version of whatever we had previously. So that you'll see in most requests, they have to evaluate whether this vehicle can be done with a hybrid or all electric or something like that. But other than that, it's really we have our existing fleet and it's department's request when the vehicles typically get over 100,000 miles or older. Depending on the vehicle, they'll come forward when they again start experiencing breakdowns or different difficulties with that vehicle to request replacement. Now, some departments with fleets will come on a more regular cycle because we don't want to get to a place where we push off, and then we get a year where we need a whole bunch of them. So we try to balance it out a little bit to what Chief King was speaking to, where having that kind of recurring schedule prevents us, and we don't have a bubble year where maybe we have 6 vehicles that all need to be replaced at once. And that's sort of how the fire department works as well with ambulances. They kind of have a regular cycle based on the size of their fleet. So if they're swapping them out before they break down and it becomes an emergency situation. So I think with DPW, police, fire, you'll see more of that.
So it's really case by case. We're getting a request, we're assessing the urgency of it and looking at it in the context of other requests that are coming in.
Other requests, yeah.
And
and we do a little bit of that before it gets to this level as well. Like this year with the request from DPW, there were several vehicle requests. And I know there's I don't know if it's a request, but I know there's a desire by prior JCPCs to really look hard at our vehicles, at the size of the fleet. And we haven't quite been able to do that yet. So I wanted to, before we put a bunch of vehicle replacements on there, be able to complete that first. And that's why I get back to like the fuel management system that Guilford proposed and the vehicle inventory system. That would be tremendously helpful, I think, to this committee, to myself, and others at monitoring our vehicles. Because again, right now I send out a request to every department that has vehicles and say, give me your mileage. And then, over the next 3 weeks, I'll get different mileages. And it's really hard to monitor like how much are these vehicles being used? I have them tell me, are they being used daily, weekly, monthly? It'd be nice to be able to have a report that I can actually pull up and see like different volumes of usage by vehicle. So I don't, it sounds like what Guilford's proposing maybe right now couldn't do that, but if it could in the long term, I think that would be helpful to achieving that goal of really making sure our vehicle fleet is the right size for the town.
yeah, because a lot of it is sort of subjective, and if you're not able to see all of that information comparatively,
And there's a whole bunch of hidden insurance costs too, right? So you're seeing the vehicle cost, but insurance, every vehicle we have is insured. So there's what I hear from the committee, and it's totally justified, is that we really got to look closely at our vehicle fleet.
Kathy?
And I just want to add, last year, Jill, Bridget and Bob Hegner, who then went off to council, said we need to have some kind of policy, and it was around showing the things you're talking about, like at what point, what amount of repairs we're sinking into a vehicle, it just doesn't make sense to keep it anymore. Or Guilford had one that's half the time off the road because it's broken down. So is there something beyond miles that says the vehicle is deteriorating? With some vehicles, at least passenger, the kind we buy, you can buy extended warranties. So 100 doesn't become the magic number, but we didn't do it. So we said, let's get our heads together in the finance committee, and Bob Hagner was going to lead it up. And as he retired and went off the council, he said, oh dear, I never did it. In terms of trying to think through, would there be a way of putting this through a screen for across the departments, not just department by department. So
Kathy, maybe that could be a recommendation from this committee, from the finance committee to, we talked about summer projects and things that are like higher level goals that we could work on. We have a policy manual that the finance committee looked at that does speak to capital. Maybe we could have some of that conversation there over the summer before the next JCPC cycle.
And that's what we were looking, Jill, for those who are in finance, for in the summer, the agendas will be slim from pressing things. So it could be more where we're focused on what things would be helpful when we're doing these assessments of budgets, vehicles, costs. And this is bigger, but I just want to say up and whatever other than as an idea.
That's great. And I'd be happy on finance to work on this. I think It's a good use of time for sure.
Okay, anything else? Thank you. Kathy, where are you now?
Getting, we're past New Haven, so I'm almost home. It's great.
Okay.
And
Well,
thank you very much for sharing. And Jill, I'll just send you what Andy did for minutes, a prototype. And I think we put the minutes in the packet. I haven't reviewed them yet, but I'll start to do a practice where the minutes will be in the packet if we have them from the previous meeting. So anyone who wants to take a look at the minutes, that they don't have to be super final, but as there were reminder of what we talked about. So, and Andy did great minutes. They were really good.
Sean sent out the transcript and the video. So I don't know if you can do that again, Sean.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, Jill, as soon as it comes to my email, which is usually within a few hours. I'll send it to you.
So then I took the transcript and I, dumped it into AI, and I had to use sections. But anyway, that was helpful, and then I had to correct it, but that saved some time. So, all right, hearing nothing, I guess. Do we need to go around and I guess we need to have a voice vote to. I'm going to move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
And thank you, Lee.
I second it.
And so then I'll just go around and hear votes. So Kathy?
Yes.
I'm an aye. Eugene?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.